Well, good morning. We are in day 35 of quarantine here in California, at least. So I'm checking in just to catch up on everything that's been going on. And let me pull something up here. There we go. I just, of course, am doing this every day at 11 because I want to touch base with you about what's gone on overnight, the state of affairs, any developments overnight. And I seem to be part of the news in that I've gotten a lot of tongues wagging by comments I made last night on Laura Ingram's show. So I thought I would follow up on that. Now, I just want to be really clear and really transparent. My position last night, at least, was intended to be the same thing that I've been saying in these chats and on shows for, I don't know, at least 2 weeks now. And that being said, I'm concerned that the deterioration of the mental and physical health can be substantial from enduring prolonged quarantine while also worrying about being infected with a dreaded virus in the midst of a crashing economy, lost jobs, and an inability to even feed your family. Now, I have said that depression, anxiety, loneliness, and a feeling of helplessness, among other things, can create problems that can last for years and cost lives, and that this should not be ignored. And therefore, we need to be looking to safely, responsibly follow the science and get back to our lives as soon as possible. Now, I want to say, I don't mean that we need to just run back out there and start pretending that nothing has ever happened. I don't mean that at all. I have also said dozens of times that Robin and I 100% support the CDC guidelines of quarantine and have been following them, sheltering at home and maintaining social distancing guidelines. I've said 100% I support that we shut the country down to protect what is perhaps a small percentage of those for whom this virus is most dangerous. People have asked me, Dr. Phil, do you think we should shut the country down for that maybe 15% that can be really adversely affected by this? And I said, damn right we should, because that's who we are. We care about everybody. We're Americans. We care about all of our people. We take care of our young people. We take care of our elderly people. So yes, we should shut the country down if that's what it takes. And what I believe, regardless of what I may have come across as saying, what I believe is we need widespread testing and continued protection of the high-risk portion of the population. And I've done probably 15 shows in a row that espouses those principles. Now, last night I said we as a society have chosen to live with certain controllable deadly risk every day: smoking, auto crashes, swimming. And yes, I know that those are not contagious. So probably bad examples. And I referred to them as numbers of deaths that we apparently find acceptable because we do little or nothing about them. And I get that they're not contagious, so they're probably not good examples. I probably could have used better examples about that. Oh, and by the way, I misspoke about drowning deaths. I quoted a worldwide number, not a U.S. number. The World Health Organization reports this number at 320,000 globally and have called it a major public health problem worldwide. So, and I quoted the worldwide number instead of the U.S. number. But, yes, I get that those are not contagious. What I do recommend is that you listen to your state governors, as I'm going to do, that you abide by their rules to stay at home until we are all happily united healthily and backed with our loved ones, family, friends, and coworkers and can return to life as we knew it, but even better and stronger. One thing we can't do is just run out the door and say, it's over, I'm going to pretend it never happened. Whatever happens, we need to do it in a coordinated fashion. We need to do all of this together. And I don't want to ignore the fact that if we stay locked down, that we need to pay attention to the fact that depression sets in, loneliness sets in, and that begins to erode our mental and our physical health. And if in fact it turns out that we're going to have to be locked down for a long period of time, we need to really garner resources to help people with that, to give them the coping strategies they need, the help they need, the support they need. That's all I'm saying. If we can get back to our lives soon, great. Let's do it responsibly and let's follow the science. And if once we do that, we see that a spike starts to go up and we need to step back again, then that's what we'll have to do. But if we stay locked down, we've got to help people with how to cope with depression, how to cope with loneliness, how to cope with a feeling of helplessness, how to help our children not be afraid. Look, I've said, you guys have heard me say till you're probably tired of hearing me say it, I'm not an infectious disease doctor. I'm not a molecular microbiologist. I look at this from the human behavior psychological standpoint. And so I want to talk about how you feel long term. And if this creates PTSD, it can show up 3 years from now, 2 years from now, 1 year from now. I don't want to neglect that. That's what I do. That's who I am. So I'm not wanting to say anything inconsistent with what I've said before. And what I've said before is let's be responsible. Listen to your governor. If the governor says we need to shelter at home another 30 days, then let's do it. But while we're doing it, let's pay attention to our mental health. Let's pay attention to our children's mental health. Let's pay attention to our couples and how we're getting along in that regard. I just think it's really important that we do that. So if I offended people's sensibilities last night with my examples, then erase those and just hear my message. You know, sometimes people can say something and you can jump on the message and forget about what the long-term message has been. My long-term message is, let's stick together as Americans. Let's be certain that we care about each other. We care about our neighbors. And what's the thing I've told you to do? I've said the way to fill yourself up is to give. If you've got an elderly person on the corner, go down and ask him if you can help him in some way. And I'm saying the same thing is here. If we do open this country back up, let's continue to pay attention to our elderly with underlying conditions. Let's make sure that we have the proper testing in place. Let's make sure that we support those people. So if some of you didn't like my examples, then okay, forget about my examples. Throw those out, but hear the message. We need to take care of ourselves mentally, emotionally, and psychologically while we're in this lockdown, because I don't want us to have problems once we get back out. And let's pay really close attention to our children and be sure that we don't let them get caught up in this. Okay, now I'm going to answer some questions that you guys have sent in, and let me pull those up here. Okay. Rachel Rouse says, do I protect my sobriety through this? How do I protect my sobriety through this chaos? Meetings are canceled in my area and I'm trying to do it online, but it's just not the same. Well, Rachel, that's kind of what I'm talking about with us being in quarantine, that we have different challenges while we're in quarantine. And that's why I think it's really important that we take extra steps. If we're going to be in quarantine and locked down for a time, you have a bigger challenge, because I'm a big proponent of the 12-step program. And I know that a big part of it is that human contact, being around like-minded people that support sobriety, having your sponsor, being able to make eye contact, sit down with them and have that human contact. And you can't do that right now, but you can do it technologically. You can get on FaceTime with them. You can talk to them. And maybe you can even meet with them, but across the street from your house, where you can at least see each other. You can at least talk in some way. But do what you can do. Use the technology, and don't allow yourself to use this crisis as an excuse to start self-medicating with alcohol again. You know that didn't work for you before, or you wouldn't be working on sobriety now. So stick with your commitment and do what you can do to hang on to it. This is going to end soon. I strongly believe it's going to end soon. The models that were projected early on obviously did not come true, because they underestimated the spirit of the American people to step up and do what was necessary. And now they've come up with a 3-phase program. Well, actually it's 4-phase, because there's gating. And I don't know if you guys have studied this, but the gating says, okay, first, before you can get into the 3 phases of opening up the states, you've got to show essentially that you have surge capacity. That if, when you open up, it does spike, you've got to show you have surge capacity in your hospitals, with your doctors, with your ICU, with ventilators, all that. You've got to show that if there's a spike, you have the capacity to handle a surge. And then you get into phase 1. And when you get into phase 1, basically, what it says is that it's very conservative. It says individuals, those that are vulnerable, continue to shelter in place, and families of those folks continue to isolate themselves. If they go back into the world, when they come home, they can't be around those vulnerable people. It says in public, 10 or more, that's the limit. You can't go more than 10 people in a group, and you're to avoid even those groups without taking precautions, and that you're to have no social gatherings with 10 or more people without social distancing, and you're to minimize non-essential travel. And employers are to encourage telework and return in phases. Common areas are to be shut down, so there aren't these group areas where you have lunch and stuff at work. Maintain social distancing. Non-essential travel is to be discouraged, and to have zones at work for those that are vulnerable. If you have elderly people, or you have people with COPD or respiratory, that you have a zone where they can work away from everybody else to keep them safe. And in phase 1, schools and bars that are closed are to stay closed. And nursing homes that are locked down with no visitors from the outside are to remain locked down. And venues and gyms that can open, but they have to maintain social distancing. And you have to be certain that if you have elective surgeries, that's okay if the hospital has demonstrated that they can meet all the requirements and have proper surge capacity in control. So that's what phase 1 is, and that's what I mean. They're following the science and making sure that, number one, your community can handle if it goes badly, and that you still maintain all the rules that we've learned since the time. I see all of your hearts and smiles following. Thank you for your support. Melissa Tovey says, I'm worried about developing a drinking problem with the stress and being stuck at home with kids. That's challenging. I normally cope with not drinking too much in life because I keep my life busy out and about. Now I'm stuck at home, and that is a trigger. Well, that's a trigger if you let it be a trigger. But listen, I've talked about some coping skills that you can use. I've said if just even twice a day for 10 minutes, you'll really tense up your muscles and relax. Tense up your muscles and relax. 10 times in a row, breathe in for 3 seconds, out for 6 seconds. In for 3, out for 6. You can really diminish the stress in your body. You can really get down all of the tension where you feel a sense of relaxation, and it can last up to 8 hours. So do something instead of medicate with alcohol. Medicate with some coping plan, relaxation skills, use imagery. If you go to drphil.com, there are some imagery links there where you can just kind of close your eyes and listen. It gives you some real mellow sort of scenes and images. Now you say, that's great, Dr. Phil. You don't have 4 kids at home knocking on the door and pulling on you. Maybe you have to get up a few minutes early in the morning. But don't let it be a trigger. That's your choice. Christopher Shirk says, hope you are well, sir. I'm celebrating more than 5 months of sobriety today. My struggles continue to be a big part with my brother binge drinking around me all the time. Not that it makes me want to drink. It's just heartbreaking to watch. I need help. That is tough. And I can tell you there are treatment centers that are still functioning. There are treatment centers that are accepting clients at this point, and they're able to do it in a way that they maintain social distancing. It's not easy, but you can still get help for your brother at this point if you feel like you need to. But if you plan an intervention, again, if you go to drphil.com, we have an intervention protocol there. And by the way, interventions are not about yelling and screaming and gnashing of teeth. It's about getting your facts together and really confronting him. And don't try to talk to a drunk about their drinking while they're drunk. That's not the time to do that. Because you're not going to get anywhere. You need to catch him between binges and sit down and say, listen, I really love you, and I'm really concerned about what you may be doing to yourself here. And if he denies it, have your facts and say, well, here's 2 DUIs. Here's 3 pictures of a crashed car. Here's a picture of you sleeping on the steps. Outside. I mean, you obviously have use facts that nobody can argue with. That's really important. Tina Latsnick, it's Latsnic, Frey. What about the people dealing with relapsing? Self-isolation is a huge trigger for people trying to stay clean. Well, that's true, but isolation doesn't need to mean lonely. If you are there by yourself, then you need to reach out. Use technology. Reach out to other people. Talk to your neighbors. Talk to your friends. Talk to your family. Talk to your sponsor. Don't sit there by yourself and say, it's me in the 4 walls. It's you in the 4 walls if you let that be the case. There are hotlines you can call. There are support groups you can call. There are neighbors you can call. And these are the challenges in isolation and quarantine that I'm concerned about. This is why I'm saying we need to end this as soon as we can safely. And when that's going to be will be determined by your governor. But until that happens, you really need to make yourself a priority. Until that happens, make yourself a priority. And hear what I'm saying. I care about you. Your family cares about you. You need to care about yourself. And unless you do, unless it starts with you, you'll never get where you're going. Karine Ostojic, Ostojic. How come I don't ever get Brown or Jones or Smith? How to deal with a spouse who drinks heavily during this quarantine. Look, that's always a challenge. People are going to change when they really want to change. You can inspire them to change. You can encourage them to change. You can't make them change. You can't threaten them into change. You just can't do that. But what you can do is come at them from a position of love and say, I'm really concerned about what you're doing to yourself here. And every time you do this, I get really lonely because you're not here. You're not here for me. And I miss you. And I value you and I want you to be here for me. So, I'm asking you, maybe you can do this for me. So, that would help. Oh, Robin just came in.
No?
Say hi.
Okay.
Say hi, Mom. I'm
Oh,
doing
hi. Where do I look?
right. You look right there and right here.
Oh,
Okay.
hi, everyone. I've been wanting to say hi during all of these chats, and I just haven't done it. So, hello.
Yeah. Why don't you ever say hi?
I don't know. I guess because I'm too busy being crew and
Yeah.
Glam Squad and
Yeah.
all of that.
She does hair, makeup, lights, camera, wardrobe.
Yep.
She turns everything on, everything
Yes.
off.
And I'm
So,
having so much fun doing it. And then I stand back and listen to everything.
yeah.
And then I
So,
give him his water because he's doing so much talking. He's having to clear his throat. So,
yeah, I know.
but okay, I won't interrupt.
But I'm healthy. I'm not sick. I'm just
Okay,
clear
good to
my
see
throat.
you.
Okay. Thanks for saying hi. Lauren Varnell says, can you give some advice to people with addictions? Interestingly enough, Lauren, and this is a great segue into today's episode, which is sobriety in a time of crisis, which is why we chose questions today about sobriety and quarantine. I've been doing shows about how you function in quarantine mentally, emotionally, psychologically, addiction wise, food wise, substance wise, everything, because it's a different set of challenges, right? And we're doing it with a hammer hanging over our head and that creates anxiety. Are we going to get this dread virus? Are we going to have a job when we get out of here? Are we going to be bankrupt? Are we going to be able to pay our mortgage, our rent? Are we going to lose our house, lose our apartment? I mean, what's going to happen? That creates a lot of anxiety and a lot of tension. And so if you have a problem with substances where you've used that for escapism before, it's particularly difficult. And beer and liquor sales are on the rise. I mean, people are drinking at home more, they have more time, and they've got pressure they want to escape. And they're struggling with addiction, so they're more at risk for relapse because their routines have been disrupted. And alcoholics and addicts are told, don't isolate yourself, stay in contact, don't get off by yourself. And now it's being forced on us. And the first 90 days of sobriety are the most important time. And it's time that it's good to be distracted. It's time to do activities, service work, multiple daily meetings, etc. You guys have heard me say 90 meetings in 90 days. And that's real hard to do right now. And treatment centers are isolating new clients for 14 days. So even if you go to a treatment center, you're kind of put off to the side for 14 days so you don't have a lot of interaction. We talked to Ann, who broke up with her boyfriend the same day that quarantine began, and she says she's just using alcohol to cope with the heartbreak. And this is a very intelligent and insightful woman, and she recognizes this, and we're getting to her before she really gets into a problem. And she's not drinking to the point of real abuse, just kind of escape and getting that buzz. And she's a really great example. So we talked to her today. And then former guest Danielle is living in a sober living house with 20 roommates. So it's really hard to social distance, but they're doing their best. But she's lost her job and she doesn't know how she's going to pay her bills. And you'll remember Danielle, she was really a hot mess when she came on, but she's doing much better now. And then former guest Nikki is working at a treatment center, and she's really a sponsor to many, and she's sharing insight on the sober community. So she gives us a lot of insight into what the challenges are right now from the treatment side. And, these are two former guests that were really in a tough spot in their lives in the beginning, but really turned it around. And so I'm glad they're back on to tell us what's going on. So that's what today's show's about, and I hope you'll watch. So that's what's going on. That's what's happened overnight. Again, just to follow up on those of you that had comments about my appearance on Laura Ingram's show last night. I just want to follow by saying if you didn't like my choice of words, I apologize for that. Know this. I'm concerned about you. That's my number one concern here. If you don't like my choice of words, then hit the eject button on those. But don't ever think I'm not concerned about you. That's what I'm concerned about. And I know that the longer we stay in quarantine, the more psychological issues and damage we have. And that's why I continue to do these shows. That's why I continue to have these chats with you now, so I can help with that. Depression, anxiety, loneliness, those things create problems. What I want us to do, all of us, is 100% follow the guidelines, 100% support doing this together. Self-isolation, being alone together, is an altruistic act because by isolating, we're helping everybody. And when we do get the green light, as you can see from this 3-phase program that your governor is going to decide, we're going to follow the science. And that's what I want to do. I want us to follow the science. And I think that we're very innovative. I think private sector might have done this as effectively. I don't know, but we are where we are. Let's follow the guidelines. Let's follow the science. And when it's time to go out, if the science says wear masks to work, let's wear masks to work. If the science says work from home, but be able to go out some, then let's do whatever the science says. Let's follow that. But take care of yourself. Take care of others. I love you guys. We've been together all these years. I know that you care about each other and your families. Let's work together and get through this, and let's build this economy back. Let's build our world back. And this time next year, we'll be stronger for it. The science is working. There are some things on the horizon that are going to keep this from being so bad if it comes back around next year. I have confidence in the science. All right, so that's it for today. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you, well, what's today, Friday? I'll talk to you on Monday. Have a good weekend. Stay safe. Listen to the guidelines. Listen to your governor. We'll see what happens. I'll talk to you on Monday. So long. Let's see, where do I stop? Here we go.